Ready to rock and roll.
System 333 on air. Today we're going live for the first time. I've got Daniel John Allen here, a great personality that we've seen on social media in recent weeks. Has a lot of great content he's been putting on his Instagram and Facebook. Focuses on overall well-being for people through spiritually, mentally, and physical health practices. Some of the stuff I highly recommend that I've seen in the content he's provided. Welcome to the show, Daniel, and thank you for actually making this happen live on StreamYard. First time we're using it. How you going?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Yeah, just a lot's happening, and I think we're going to dive into a lot of interesting topics today. And I'm psyched to be here, man, and discuss small things, about awareness, spirituality, what it really means, and what it is to be, I guess, overall healthy. Looking at the bigger picture as opposed to just a surface level. So yeah, really excited.
Absolutely. Look, with and you're also based in Sydney, so we share a similar human experience. Living in the same city, so we all know that Sydney have had a recent coronavirus outbreak, which I'm sure we'll get through discussing a bit on that. What I would first like to address is, pandemic. It's been almost 1 year. Really started off, I guess, for us in Sydney at the end of March. So let's just say in the last year, since the start of the pandemic, what have you been focusing on in regards to your, physical well-being, mental well-being, spirituality? How's that walk been, that journey been over this period of time?
Great question, man. So, as you know, this thing has taken over a lot of people's lives and affected us on so many levels. And so, for me, really was to focus more on my internal world. Because a lot of us, when we get stressed over this COVID-19, we tend to look externally for answers and kind of just shut off our internal world and lose the focus of being in the present. So over the last year, I've just been focusing a lot on meditation, a lot of journaling, a lot of exercising, getting lots of nature in, connecting with people, especially connecting with people, who are like-minded, who understand your path, who want to grow. Recently, rest in paradise, I lost a friend in high school because, as you know, with young men, we tend to bash ourselves because of the standard that we have, for ourselves, right? So looking after our mental health and staying connected, being in a community and just really focusing on our inner world, that's what really got me through the last year.
Yeah, I got to admit, what you mentioned about the external and internal world. Today I put up a Facebook post, and I did this in regard to a dream that I had, which I'd like to get into a bit later. But it says this was a trip I did in Greece back at the end of 2018, and don't know if you know, my background's Greek, so I've gone to and fro from there. Basically, I would choose to live there. Had the situation not turned out the way it did in this pandemic, Dan. But one thing I took away with me from my last visit to Greece, not knowing when I would be back, was to know that the external world remains unchanged whilst the internal world transcends. The path of intuition proposed that history will write itself as life is the full circle. For the prophets came, spoke, and shed their blood for the sake of humanity, in hope that one day this cycle may end. Now, the first part that I want to look at about what you said about the external world and then the internal world. So, look, when I stated, I guess the external world remains unchanged, it's history as we know it has always shown that there's going to be pockets of incidents that will have a oppressing effect on humanity, on the collective, whether it's a collective in one country, a collective in one continent, or now we're looking at a global collective oppression. What we have to understand is these patterns of life as we know it in the human experience are very much a foundation for us understanding the external world. right? So once we can see that things don't really change, just a continuous pattern, cycles of
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
And we know this from reading history. I'm a history major, so I really started picking out some of these real concepts. And then
Yeah.
I realized, well, what can you do as an individual? We're in the middle of a pandemic. What can you do? And that's work on your internal world. That's something that
Yeah.
you've been primarily focusing on,
Yeah.
building a strong internal structure.
Yeah.
What type of practices have you been doing to help you build that foundation?
Yeah. So really was just to get grounded in my inner world and ensuring that I don't have my head above the clouds. Because as you know, for people who go through quote unquote an awakening and a realization of how catastrophic or how chaotic the world really is, because a lot of us tend to put that aside and think life is roses and fucking butterflies and all that kind of stuff. Grounding for me was through, like I said previously, meditation, man, and really setting the zone in having a structure in my routine and lifestyle. So when it comes to creating that foundation, every day, like I've got to start my day off with meditation, or at least get myself out in nature and regroup and come back to myself, to the source, to the energy within, because that's the energy that perpetuates everything. And through that, when we understand that, we know that we create our realities. Instead of focusing on externally, those all the negative things in the world, we can change that by being who we are at the core, by coming back to ourselves, by being present, by focusing on our surroundings from the inside out. So meditation is super powerful. It's just been a game changer for me since, I guess, having my own experience in my own journey. So that's been a super powerful tool for me anyways.
Yeah, meditation I found was very much a great practice to have more acuity and clarity about the nature
Mm,
of how the world unfolds in front of your eyes.
mm,
Um, and I think as the longer you're able to maintain that meditative state,
yeah,
the the better it becomes for your life, right? And I believe that's
yeah,
why meditation, trying to keep it as a routine or practice, is beneficial. I mean, I got to admit, there are times I'm super disciplined, and other times I don't do it. But
yeah,
I feel like these type of things end up reinvigorating in your life from time to time to be able to move you
yeah,
to the next level.
yeah.
In general, with meditation, I mean, I guess there are so many different ways of doing it. I've got
Mm,
a mate who's got a very great, I guess, I mean, great voice clip on how he likes to see meditation. It's
mm,
so deep that I have to listen to it multiple times just to remind myself. How do you
yeah,
see meditation in terms of its nature?
yeah. So very good question. So the other thing I like to add is as well is shadow work. But I'll answer your question first. So
Shadow work, yeah,
meditation, yeah. So meditation, a lot of people think you just got to sit down, put yourself in a posing position, and that's it. Like meditation is merely just being in a state of awareness of your environment and not allowing the external to change your internal world. So focusing on your thoughts, on higher vibrational thoughts, higher vibrational feelings, because essentially when you meditate, you are putting yourself in a position where you can affect the environment based on your own vibration. So, when you put yourself in that practice, think of positive thoughts, think of affirm, think of speak thoughts to yourself that literally affect your internal world, because everything that we see began as a thought, right? So everything began as a concept. And so how I do it is really just I'll throw on some either hemi synchronizations. So that is basically a frequency that connects your left side and your right side brain, so your logical mind and your imaginative, your creative mind, and putting in a state of coherence. So I have a state of balance, balancing the
balance,
yin, balancing
correct.
the yang, right? So really it's just, it doesn't even have to be first thing in the morning. You can meditate right now, you can meditate in the shopping center, you can meditate at the park, wherever it is.
I feel like when I'm walking, like just to regular life, that I'm just meditating. Like I'm literally in a meditative state. Like that's how it's become now. But it's pretty cool. Like it's bloody cool. I'll tell you that. So I mean, just about balance. That was a word you mentioned. So System 333 was essentially what I would say as bridging duality, right? And I've got some of this coming out in my new 8-episode podcast that I'll have released it with Sim in the next few weeks. But the way I see this, Dan, is the bridging of duality was the method to what developed the model of System 333. And I know you probably ask me, where does the 333 come from? And, you know, we can look at numerology, which I know you've probably done a fair bit of work in. Really what it came from was, you see, when we had the actual draft image drawn out and took a look, when I looked at it as a macro, like, because I felt like when I had it in front of me, I was in it, inside it. But then I took a step back, looked at the macro, and realized this whole thing is one object with 3 components maintaining its foundation. These 3 components are bridging duality, which is the subjective and the objective. But what is the actual thing bridging it? And that was the human experience, because in order for us to experience the objective and subjective, we need to be living this human experience, right? So that's where System 333 came in. Now, the numbers was, well, this is one thing, but what is more important? Is the human experience more important? Is the subjective more important? Is the objective more important? We realized all of them were just equally as balanced as each other. And part of meditation really gets you to that balance. So that's why it became 1 divided by 3, and it just became 0.3. All I saw were these numbers: 0.333, 0.333, 0.333, and that's how System 333 came about.
That's amazing, man. It pretty much linked to Nikola Tesla's discovery. As you know, if you want to learn the quoted by Nikola Tesla, if you want to know and understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of frequency, energy, and vibration. And 369 were the most powerful findings in his discovery. You know, when you look at a triangle, it's got 3 angles. You know, add up the angles, 4, 5, you get 9, times that by 3, you get 27. You get back to 9, it comes back to 3. And yeah, man, you're on it. You're on the number game.
There's a funny music video that I'll send to you after. It's called 999. You got to see it. It's from Square One. It's hilarious. But it kind of says it all comes. You get 27, you get 36. It kind of has the way you just explained it. And next thing you know, it goes from 9 to 3. So with now with the numerology, I want to actually speak about one number today. Aside from System 333, but just on the numerology, I want to talk about the number 666. All right, because I mean, look, call it as you will, man. A lot of stuff's coming out there about what's going on in the world right now. I personally got into reading about prophecies and Book of Revelations and all that when I was 16. I don't know what your beliefs are, what your ideas are, but I've read a whole bunch of material, Dan. What is the significance of the number 6, and what about 666, and what does that mean for us today?
So there's a lot of fear-mongering around the number 666. The simplest way to look at it is the number of protons, electrons, and neutrons. You've got 6 of those components that make up what would be, I think it's the God particle. I'm not quite sure, but essentially, basically, what the Bible has done is turn it into a sort of the mark of the beast. You know, like it's a negative, when really, in reality, it's just the components that make up melanin. Okay, so melanin, that's the one, melanin. And from what I've discovered from my own personal experience, I've found that people with higher melanin, and I'm not sure if it's something to do with the light, the UV rays, when you're more exposed to sun, you get far more synchronicity, you get more awake, you get more coincidences, you get more downloads, you get that's from what I've observed in my own experience and from what I've learned. But yeah, essentially it's just the components of the melanin. So But yeah, what's your take on it, man? What's your take?
Look, I don't think six is a bad number.
Yeah.
I think we're being very subjective when we just view six
Mm,
as that number.
yeah.
I think, and I also think, even in the context of the number 666, when it's described in that passage, right,
Mm,
it's not the number of six is bad. You know what I mean?
no.
It's not that the number
Yeah.
six is bad. It's
Yeah.
what the number equates to. The number has some sort of significance, but
Mm,
it was it's there to explain something deeper that we need to understand. Not saying the number six is
mm,
bad. That's
mm.
kind of what the people are thinking. 666, the
Yeah.
devil.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
find that comical, man. I make that as a
Yeah.
joke. Like I
Yeah.
remember, like whenever I think, oh my god, the devil, the devil. But
Yeah.
there is a
Yeah.
significance to that number and
Yeah.
why it indicates the mark of the beast. But
Mm,
I think it comes a lot from, okay, and if we were to look at the context, which will bring me to kind of the next topic, I believe,
yeah.
you said more downloads, you said you get more information. I believe that it's
Mm,
the only number where if you're at that frequency that you're
mm,
able to actually see the matrix, right?
okay.
That combination, I won't say the only number, but it's a
Yeah.
combination of numbers
Yeah. Yeah.
where you start operating to see the matrix a little more.
Mm, yeah.
And like I said, you download more information, you have
Yeah.
more access to stuff.
Yeah.
And the reason is either you're in it
Mm,
or you're out of it, right?
yeah.
You're in it or you're
Yeah.
out of it. If
Yeah.
you've worked that number out, that you don't, then you won't
Mm,
get this mark because you're not in the matrix. I think it's the
yeah.
difference between in
Ah.
or out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And I think it also stems from when you go down that rabbit hole of Walt Disney and the things, the subliminal things you see about it is that in the logo of Walt Disney, you can see 666, and I think that's where a lot of the fear comes from as well. So, but yeah, you're absolutely right, man. It is a number, and they do represent something. And there's always going to be some deeper meaning behind it.
Definitely. And look, can't guarantee what it is and isn't about,
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
mean, I just thought that I'd throw that out as an idea,
yeah,
that it being, whether it's been unplugged or replugged, but there is something
mm,
to it that definitely shows us type of state of awareness, like you said,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
a type of state of awareness, however you want to frame that. Now, with that
yeah,
being said, we'll talk about frequency, state of the awareness.
mm,
Meditation, you believe it's one of those great practices to help you there. I know a lot of other people that have come on my podcast have said the same thing, Dan. So that
yeah,
seems to be a common theme. I
yeah,
haven't had too much on my podcast discussed on synchronicity and
yeah.
frequency
Okay.
alike. I know Ignis from America came on and spoke a bit about
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Had a very good insight to it.
yeah,
What's your opinion on why is it that as you reach this level of state of awareness, all of a sudden
yeah.
everything starts unfolding? These coincidences are no longer coincidences.
Mm.
What is the magic behind that? Why is this happening?
Why is this happening? So really, it's a way of the universe kind of verifying you're on the right path. So synchronicities was originally coined by Carl Jung,
Jung, yeah,
famous psychologist who discovered when he was with a patient and the patient was describing their dream and described the color yellow. And as she described that, a yellow bug came into the room. And from then on, he just went into the rabbit hole of what this actually meant. And so for the skeptics out there, it is hard to see these kind of things because from a scientific point of view, we can look at it as the reticular activating system. So a part of our brain, will filter out information. We're in the world because we're constantly bombarded with, data constantly, right? And so when we're looking for a specific thing or we're on a certain frequency, we only see what we want to see. So for example, if you think of yellow cars, you're out about on the road, you're going to see yellow cars more often. That's the logical side behind it. But from my own personal experience, anytime that I've ever kind of tuned in, aligned, I've gone with the flow, I've let things go, especially letting go of control, things just start to kind of magically happen. Things go into flow. You think of a word, it comes up on like the radio, or you think of someone, they call you, and things like that. And so the powerful thing about it is just really it's just to verify that, yes, you're on the right path, keep going, whether that be through angel numbers, music, whether that be, you know, certain experiences where you want to manifesting based on your own thought, you know, you want to attract something through your vibration. Synchronicities is merely just the joke of the universe, like, haha, like, I'm here
Cosmic
to,
giggle.
like, yeah, exactly, pretty much.
The cosmic giggle, yeah. And look, I've started noticing the patterns that I've seen. Whether it means noticing patterns in numbers, noticing patterns in just meeting certain people at certain times, certain periods of life. For example, I saw your video shared on this girl's page on our Facebook, and I'm just like,
Oh, yeah.
that's really cool. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
she's been following your stuff too.
yeah,
And like that was random, and I was just like, oh, we're doing, and I was like, yeah, we're doing something in a few days. Like, how
yeah,
cool is that?
yeah,
Like, that was like a
yeah,
cosmic giggle moment for me, right?
yeah,
With with um with that being said, and just taking a look, deeper into what is going on at the moment. Now, I mentioned we're in a matrix. However you want to say that you're aware you're in a matrix, whether you're in it or out of it.
yeah.
When was your first realization that you were living in some simulation
Yeah.
in this modality of life?
Good question. So this was I had a couple of breakthroughs. My first one was in 2010. I went cold turkey from weed. I became a little bit schizo. I thought I was schizo, but really I was just realizing the lucidity of the world. I started to realize
Because
just
that's what
how,
happens when that sounds normal. What happens when you come off the green, you
yeah,
become more hyper aware of the world.
yeah, yeah. So that was
Crazy.
that. And I wasn't really exposed to like spirituality and things like that. So I kind of just dropped it off, focused and so I could forget about it. And then a few years later, 2017, started dating his spirit, like full spiritual gypsy chick, and she really exposed me to, I guess, the mystery of the world. And so I had these like absolutely mind-blowing synchronicities. Like, for example, when she was in Canada and I was here in Australia, I was imagining like I was salsa dancing with her, right? I was in the shower, I was like full getting into it. I was like, fuck, this is so weird, but like it feels like so real. The next day, we talk on the phone and she tells me that we had a salsa dance. And from then on, I'm like, what the fuck? This is weird. Like, how is that
Yeah.
possible? So, you go down the rabbit hole, like, like telepathy and yada, yada, yada. And then you kind of realize, like, shit, there's been a veil, like, over me this whole time. How come we've never been taught this information? How come we've never been exposed to just how, I guess, infinite this reality is, like how multidimensional it is and how it's just expansive it is when you place that awareness on it. And so, yeah, 3 years ago, I just went down the rabbit hole and started to realize, holy shit, there's systems in place. There are rules that I've been following for what reason. I've been living a certain lifestyle for whatever reason, and kind of just recondition the mind from then and start to see, okay, well, you can go in it, like you said, you can be in the world, but not of the world, and kind of just know when to tune in and tune out. So, yeah. Oh, the other thing was also MDMA. That kind of really helped me.
Yeah.
MDMA
Man.
really it helped me realize just how one we are with the world, and that kind of just helped me. Yeah, and from then it's like, okay, well, everything, all this separateness is just an illusion that we create. So, yeah.
Well, you know what? It sounds like I relate, man.
Yeah.
One thing I started realizing, okay, just with MDMA, now that you mentioned it, was I started getting into I remember this started like when I was in my early 20s. Like, I seen it when I'm 30 now, so it's like when I was 21, 22.
Yeah.
I started basically picking up on people's real energies, man. I started realizing that from miles away. I could tell if somebody was like a vampire, just these archetypes within the collective unconscious. I could start seeing all that, and that would put me in a free. You know what I mean? Like, put me in like this high frequency. It sounds crazy, but I could see the energies of people who had angelic nature, People had like vampire nature, people who had kind of, very placid nature, serene. It was very interesting. But I remember the vampire one specifically. If my mate Gibbo's watching this, because we are live and I did send him the link, he'll remember the vampire's lair we experienced at a hotel. I think it was somewhere in Surrey Hills. But we were both on that, vibing on that same frequency. Like he saw what I could see, and it was just like, this is really interesting. I mean, they're not. They're just, you're able to pick up on people's inner energies, internal world.
Yeah, man. Yeah, interesting you say that. Like I've also had some. I've had some experiences where I've seen shadows, and especially it's when you kind of tune into that frequency, when you think of certain things. Now, some people think, oh, well, you're just kind of tripping out, your mind's hallucinating, which fair enough, open to that suggestion. However, from my own personal experience, I've had a few times where I kind of like literally felt orbs in my hand, and had another person literally validate that, like feeling an energy come around, or I'll see a shadow there, and I'm thinking, what the fuck? Am I crazy, or am I just seeing things? And then obviously have other people say that, but yeah, it just sounds to me, just sounds like you're like hyper aware, you're hypersensitive to, or you're empathic would be the key word. You're empathic to people's nature, and we all have auras. We all have, we emit a certain energy, and you can get photographic images to see that. What colors represent certain types of energy as well. So
yeah, it's interesting. It's something that definitely, like, once I started trying to really figure out the simulation, the matrix, it was something that I seriously noticed that there were these frequencies I was tapping into. I'm just looking here now. So so I really started thinking about this over the last, since I've thought about this for years, but since the last few weeks, it's become more apparent. And main reason is because I had a bit of a holiday, a bit of a break, gives you more time to think about stuff.
Yeah.
Then you had this Sydney coronavirus outbreak, which I want to get to.
Yeah.
So what is really going on in terms of people's psyche right now where we live in Sydney?
Well, so from what I've gathered, it's not just Sydney, but the collective consciousness. So a lot of what we are seeing is, if you want to get like, including the deep shit that we've been exposed to in the rabbit holes, is a lot of the subconscious mind. It's a lot of, what we allow. But back to Sydney, what we're seeing is merely a testing ground, just like they did in Victoria. And so what's happening is just what we're allowing. And for as long as we allow this outbreak for us, what we perceive it to be, like you can say it's the most infectious disease, but the facts are it's something that's that only has less than 1% chance of killing you. It just seems outrageous for me that we have to go through this these mandatory regulations when in reality it isn't that dangerous. But yeah, it just, to me, it looks like it's another testing ground like Victoria.
It seems to me that there's just this level of spiritual compliance. Like, the level of compliance someone has, or a collective, to be able to respond to the external world. And that's why I think it's important when we say it all starts internally. Where are you at? Where are you at right now? Where's your heart at? Where's your soul at, right? And, if you've blinded yourself so deeply, right, to the point that you're stepping into a realm which you didn't consent for, that's where the biggest fear is. So I want to kind of really get into where this all comes in with my experience recently. It's a dream I had last night. So pretty much you said it's all about compliance, man. It's all about, this, people are just allowing things to happen. Victoria was an example. look, you know, we can frame the pandemic however we like it. It's definitely something that's happening all over the world. Had many people on my podcast talk about it.
Yeah.
There is some severity to it, but it's not about the pandemic itself. It's not about the actual virus. It's about what the authorities are doing to respond to it and the measures they're taking. So this is the angle we're looking at, and where is this leading if there is an end game, a big picture, a macro, right? I think that's the one thing people, you know, you got to remember, you got to feed a bit of facts with fiction, right? It's just the method. You know, there has to be a virus out there, evident traceable through the medical realm. Something that we can see, if we're talking about the logical way things work, and then the you know, a logical emotional brain, we need to get some logic in place, some facts to be able to deliver a type of grand plan if there was one, right? And that's just to win the compliance of people. Now, my dream, okay, so I was at a bus stop, and while I was waiting, this bus stop was somewhere in like out of Sydney. I think it was down the south coast somewhere, and I think I'd gone, you know, just for a couple of days or something like that. And what happened was I saw a group of young women go on the bus, or they were about to go on the bus, and I recognized them, but I didn't know why I recognized them or where they were from. But I was trying to figure it out. I'm like, I don't know why I know them from somewhere. Anyway, what happened was I decided I'm gonna get on the bus because the bus turned up. One of the women got on the bus, and then I went in and I asked, is this bus going to the city, right? Because I wanted to head back to Sydney. And what happened was the bus driver was like, once I got on the bus, the whole bus looked like a mobile dungeon, and there were people on it. There were like people on it, normal people, innocent people, and they were sitting down and, you know, just thinking the bus was just going to go on its merry way. Anyway, the second I walked on, I observed the whole landscape. We're talking like wide floors, kind of real grimy type of floors, long walls, grimy type of ceilings. I'm like, it occurred to me, I'm like, fuck, this isn't the right place to be. There's something off with this place, and this isn't the bus I'm meant to get. So I went straight to the bus driver and I said, look, I've got to get off. I'm not meant to get on this bus. I've left something at the bus stop. By then, the bus had already taken off in full blast. And what I noticed was that everybody in the bus also noticed, fuck, this is bad. You know, like, this is bad. Like, we're going to hell. And what that felt like immediately in my mind was like, this is the train ride that's similar to what I probably seen in when I went to the concentration camps in Auschwitz, Birkenau, because I went there, and it felt like people innocently being led to the slaughter. And I, for 1 second in my mind, was distracted in my mind, thinking about who these girls were that I knew from a while ago. And I get on the bus and I get fucking hammered by ending up in this bus trip. And at that point, when I noticed, I felt all these forces attack me, and it was just fucking really intense, dude. And I woke up, I'm like, damn, that felt real, you know?
Yeah. That reminds me of two couple of things. One, that scene in The Matrix where Neo looked at the girl with the red dress, and then he got distracted by the girl in the red dress, and then he got sabotaged by an agent, right? And then that also, when you say leading people to the slaughterhouse, it's kind of like where this whole thing's leading to, right? Is it? I'm gonna ask some questions like, is it leading towards vaccination? Is it leading towards like compulsory vaccination, right? Mandatory vaccinations? Is it leading to, you know, like these stimulus packages that we have to go through in order to make a living because people are losing their jobs, and, you know, we've got to comply to this system because people are feeling hopeless. People are feeling like this is the only way because it's only as much as they know. And so, yeah, it's very interesting that you say that because, like you said previously, you were talking about prophecies, right? A lot of these things, a lot of people like have dreamt certain things happen, right? And to me, it just sounds like you were exposed to a timeline that is a possibility, and it's happening for as long as we are consciously creating it, right? Because a lot of this is like, you know, a lot of people going about the day consciously, unconsciously, and for as long as we accept it, it's what's going to happen, and we will all end up on that bus. But unless we want to just kick back by the beach, you know, that's also an option.
Correct. I mean, and I think what one thing is that, look, we are tied into the collective, and there's a lot of there's a spiritual war going on, right? That's the way I felt. I had this discussion with a lot of people over the last few weeks since my time off, and man, this is we're talking. It's not so much that the governments are putting, these physicalities in place or however you want to put it. There's some deeper interconnected realm from the spiritual world that is manifesting within the human experience to cause the unfolding of these events that we have. What would your say be on that?
For me, it's people who are not. It's a lot of the subconscious, like I said previously, but it's also suppressing the shadow of the human experience. So what we're seeing is really just what we are ignoring and putting aside, like our right to be free. These dark things like, what we're seeing in like pedophilia, the cannibalism, all these things that are really like very low vibrational stuff. A lot of things that we're ignoring is what we're starting to see surface. And so in terms of
it's a depression of the shadow on a collective level, universal level.
Yeah.
And you spoke about shadow work before. I actually believe shadow work and the integration of the shadow is one of the most important practices, especially to fight the spiritual war, right? Especially because you need to know your enemy best, right? To fight the battle, right? You need to know your enemy to fight the battle. Why do you say shadow work is important? What's the main thing you feel like you've gotten out of it?
What I've gotten out of it is wholeness. I've found myself, and this idea of being positive and light 24/7 is a delusion. Like, you can vibrate in bliss and love, but at the same time, there's always going to be that shadow behind you, and you can't run away from it. The further you run, the harder it's going to chase you, and you're going to put yourself in these cycles where, when you meet your shadow, you can either accept it for what it is, or you can continue running from it, and that's just going to cause you way more trouble in the future, because this is something that's part of the human experience. This is something that we have to integrate. Otherwise, we won't be able to move forward, because what I see is that people tend to suppress that through medications, through drugs, through television, through social media, binging on things just to get away from it.
To put on a mask.
Yes.
There's so many different things, Dan, and I think when we talk about, you said the integration, wholeness, right? And then you said within the human experience, because it's part of the human experience, that is the bridging of duality, right? Understanding, recognizing the yin and yang, walking this human experience, saying, hey, this is the bridging of duality. The shadow needs to come in with the light, and we need to be walking together in this human experience, and recognizing what's going on a macro level. So this comes, to coming back to kind of where we're at right now with what's unfolding in the world. So I mentioned my dream. I know I mentioned the mark of the beast. You said, what the dream could be, maybe what that train ride, that bus ride could be for mandate people to get vaccines, maybe control people, put more pressure on them, get them to be under a service system where they're enslaved and they're just given their minimum requirements and needs to stay alive. What do you think is going to be a major event, maybe a possible major event, aside from the vaccines, that may occur this year on a global scale, if you were to put one prediction out there?
There's definitely going to be, inevitably, there's going to be riots. There's going to be a lot of fight for people's freedom, because as we move into the age of Aquarius, which is the age of information, which we just passed through, we are starting to see information explode on the internet, and it's just speeding up this awakening process. And so through this fear that the media pushes out, it's only going to put people in the corner and have them test out whether or not you're going to fight back or comply with the system. And so what I'm seeing this year is a lot of rebels, just like what the Aquarius energy is about, and a lot of communities forming online, a lot of communities out in the world, and we're going to start seeing people band together and kind of create their own systems, as it's already happening. People are building their own systems online. People are building their own communities online because people have just had enough of the government and what they have to say, because eventually they're just going to expose themselves, and people are going to let them go.
Man, and one thing, cryptocurrency came in. That's a new system for money. That's created by the people for the people. System 333, I actually called it a map of reality for the age of information. That was my headline back in 2018, right? It's at the back of my book, so people can see that. And that's why I realized this year, hey, I got to get on my grind. I got to write my next book, my second and third book. And I think one thing is, like you said, Daniel, people now want to start creating their own foundations, own system to guide people out of not get on that fucking bus, that ride to fucking the dungeon, Nobody wants to end up, being a sheep led to the slaughter. What's one thing you're going to be doing in 2021? It's pretty much the start of the year, 6 days in. What plans have you got?
Oh, for me, it's collabing with a lot of creators who are speaking their truth, who are living their purpose, and who are building a life for themselves. So, and displaying that to people that this is possible and that we can do this together, that we don't have to put our power in the hands of the government. The word government itself is to govern the mind, guide, mentor. And honestly, we are at a time now where we can govern ourselves. There's no need for these people. There's no need for these politics who are playing a game to lead you to the slaughterhouse, man. So for me, it's just collabing, creating more podcasts, creating more videos, and showing people how to live a better life, how to thrive, and really just understand that it's not all that serious. It's a game. We came here to play it, and that. And that,
your dogs definitely agree that the Matrix is real.
He's had enough of that as well. Yeah. Zackstar. Oi. Yeah.
No, that's cool. Look, I love the collabs. I love what you've been doing. I want to see more of it for 2021. I'd just like to wrap up the podcast. It's been a really great to have you on the show. Love to have you again. There was so much more we had to cover. If people want to reach out to you, I know you've put your handle here. I don't know if it's going to be viewable when we upload it, but at Daniel John Allen. Is that right on Instagram?
Yeah, that's right, man. So Daniel John Allen is where you can find my plugs and most of the resources that I share, the videos, guides, services as well. So for those who ever need a hand and who might feel like they're lost and that you might think that it's a hopeless time. It's not, man. It's the best time to be here, and we're in it to win. So
awesome, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and we'll see you on next time.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
No problem. You can stop the recording now, so we can talk normally.